Hey guys, welcome back to the Chessyard. This is Dhairya Bagga. And yesterday I put up a video on the Halloween Gambit. If you haven't seen it, I'm pasting the link below in the description again so that you can watch out. And that's an aggressive opening for white. Can be mastered as well, and it's good at the club level so that you can actually win multiple games. And not good at the grandmaster levels because they know those lines and they can control that. So an interesting variation where you give away one of the knights initially for the big center and keep moving your pawns towards the king, and then align your rooks and destroy the opponent completely. Uh, but yes, if you're just watching it, you will never know the lines that can happen on the game when you're playing. It's a completely different experience when you play it on the board and just watch the video and feel comfortable. So sometimes even this happen. Like I see lots of YouTube tweets where people say, "Oh, Magnus Carlsen, you just missed a simple move there," but that is not that simple, and he has given it a thought. He has calculated everything. Maybe not the right move as the computer, because computer is actually calculating lots of moves for that second, and the computer can evaluate up to 25, 27 moves at a time, which is from both the sides. A long variation like Stockfish 11 calculates up to 20 mate in 23, which is very strange, right? You are saying that it's a sure shot mate in the next 23 moves after whatever you do. So yeah, these days engines are very smart. Uh, all the respect to Magnus, he plays an amazing game, the world champion, and an inspiration to me as well. The way he plays, takes control of this game. He always goes for the exchange many times and take it to the end, and he's confident on his end game that he will take it from there. So yeah, practicing the games makes more sense rather than just watching videos. So watch the videos definitely. Otherwise, there's no point of reading these videos. So do watch them and then practice them on the board or online, and then see how it goes for you. Try and control those variations, and that will probably help you learn and scale up your game in a better format. All right. So today I'll be putting up one of my analysis on the games I played off late. This was few days back, and I tried the Sicilian Defense Alapin variation here. The Sicilian Defense is preferred at the Grandmaster level, and it has lots of variations. Like if I move my G6 pawn and then get my bishop into G7, that becomes a dragon variation. Or if I move the A6 pawn, it becomes the Nadov variation. So yeah, those variations are something which I'm still very much experimenting, and I practiced Caro-Kann in between. A very limited opening, a very restricted opening, but yeah, it gives you good control. I got good results with Caro-Kann as well. So you can try Caro-Kann as well. I'll just put that video as well next time probably. So yeah, we'll start off with the match, how it goes. Yeah. So opponent makes a move e4, a pretty standard move for white for the first move. And in the Sicilian, we actually move c5 pawn. Now, the idea behind this is you take control of the d4 square rather than just going and blocking this pawn initially. And then the idea behind this line is many times that you can probably put up your bishop on the on the b7 square and either this diagonal, the long diagonal, where the king will probably be castling it later on in the game. Now the knight comes out, a pretty standard move again, knight to f3, controlling the center again, the two squares, the e5 square and the d4 square as well. We take out our knight as well, controlling both the same squares, so that just in case an exchange happens, we are ready to take it. Now opponent moves c3 here, an interesting move because now he wants to break the center in the next move. It's very clearly visible. Now he will put up his pawn on d4 square, and then there's a pressure on this pawn, and if we take, he takes with his pawn on the exchange happens on the d4 square. Then he will eventually have two pawns and a knight, which is a good center for white initial on. So we should be trying to protect this already. So that's what I did in the game. I moved e5, trying to control the square again. Now the opponent went to break the center very quickly in this game, immediately actually. He could have actually delayed it by moving his bishop to the c4 square so that he is eyeing this diagonal, because once I castle on the king side, this diagonal becomes very important. The light square bishop on this diagonal is very deadly. So I go for the exchange with the e pawn. My idea was once the exchanges happen, once I take back, he takes up with pawn. He takes then knight exchange happens here. So my c file will get open, and c file rook on c file in such cases is very nice. So that's what I try to do here. He took with the pawn. I took the pawn on d4, and then he takes the knight because his knight is protected with the queen. And I also took with the knight. Though I could have promoted I have took out my knight on the uh, f6 square, trying to take out my minor pieces first and then going for the exchange. But the idea was, what if he takes it? Then either my b pawn will come here on the c file, and I cannot use the empty c file, or if I try to go for the empty c file, then I will take with my pawn, and then the queen is hanging already. So the queens will be exchanged, and then it will definitely go to the end game. So why try to do that initially on? So he takes with the queen, and he's already leading in the game by 1.37. Sorry, I just placed it twice. Then I gave a check from the a5 square. Though I could have taken out my knight first, but yeah, I tried to take out my queen from here. Generally, queen comes from goes to a5 and then comes to the g square or to the h square, so that to the h5 square, so that you can actually take out the bishop and then probably attack towards the king side once the casting is done. He takes out his knight, and then I take out my other knight. Taking the knight here was I didn't like that move because my bishop would be blocked. I want my bishop also to be there and try and align this bishop here, trying to pin this knight forever. Maybe if he doesn't push the a pawn. So yeah, he moves bishop, and now he is about to castle. So bishop also is good on this diagonal. Both the diagonals are good for him because if I castle on the king side, both the diagonals are very deadly and attacking my king side already. So now I try to take out my bishop and attack the queen because the queen now cannot go back in this diagonal, can come to the white square here to the c4, and I can next move probably push for a pawn and then the b pawn, or I can even move d pawn to d6 and then take out my light square bishop to e6, which would again challenge the queen. So he found a different move here. He tried to exchange the queen. Now the opponent is asking for a queen exchange. Why not take it? It's the best move for me because already my pieces are not developed properly as of now. Now my white bishop, light square bishop hasn't gone anywhere. The two rooks are not connected. So the queen exchange made more sense here. White to give him more space because if I move my queen here, he's standing here plus his bishop and knight is very near to my court. They can definitely attack me anytime. So eliminate that risk as early as possible. He takes with the knight, and I move my dark square bishop to d4. Now the idea here was I can control this pawn as well if he moves forward and challenge the knight. So I can take that, and plus I stay in the center. I can go in any diagonal now. So yeah, good square for the bishop, I firmly believe. And he castles to safety. The right move for him, I believe, because yeah, he could have probably get his bishop earlier, but that castling is always safer. You can always prefer that. I don't prefer it personally, as I told in my last video as well, but it's a safer move, and people do prefer playing castling early on in the game. And so I even castled because here my bishop is not out. I cannot castle to the queen side anytime soon. Plus, even if I castle, my king will come on the c file, which is an open file. So no point. Plus, as I said earlier, part of this video, that bishop generally comes on the b7 square here and try to hit the diagonal, and it's a useful square for the bishop, and then rook can come to c7, c8. He moves his rook there, just trying to make sure that if this pawn is moved, he can actually exchange the dark square bishop, because he all knows that the dark square bishop is very important for black. and is pointing to the king already. So I move my a pawn first, a6. I'm trying to move b5 next, starting to go for the exchanges now, trying to push my pawns forward because eventually this will turn out into the end game. Since we have exchanged queens already, if we both are careful, this will definitely go to the end game. It's a critical line from here. And then yes, he moves his pawn to the b3 square and trying to make sure that he exchanges the dark square bishop. Yeah, I keep moving my pawns. Though computer says it's an inaccuracy and you can go with this d5 pawn. But my idea was simple. I didn't want this knight to be going anywhere. So I tried to move it. He cannot come to the b6 square because it's controlled by the bishop already. He cannot come to the c5 square for the same reason. He cannot come on the c3 as well. Only move for him is now b2, where he can probably save and go for the exchange. So he goes to b2 now. Problem is he cannot promote his bishop here. So that's a good thing for me. That was part of plan to push his knight backwards, and my pawns also moved meanwhile. So now if it goes to end game, I have advanced pawns that will help me. And then bishop comes to b7 finally, pretty late though, but I didn't get time to move this to b7 initially. The game goes in a different tangent altogether from beginning. So I got the time now, so I moved it to b7. He moves his rook behind the pawn, the center pawn, and a good line to be controlled by a rook. So I did the same. If you move it forward, I can probably then take with my rook first, he take with the rook, and then I can take with the bishop. So he will be pawned down. So now moving this pawn is a bad idea for the white. So now he goes for the exchange with the dark square bishop. Now his idea is very simple. His bishop is not doing anything sitting there, hasn't been even come out of the picture so far. So he now moves it and goes for the exchange. And I took it because if he takes, then there's no point. I cannot place it back to safety. Only a7 square was there, but then it depends on my rook forever. I cannot move this rook freely, the a8 square rook. So I did just the exchange. Though computer suggests I could have gone here on the c5, on the c3. But then one more problem I was thinking that he might move his bishop to g square, g5. So if he comes to g5, then he might take on my knight next time if I don't move it. The knight is pretty good on the f6 square. I didn't want to lose control over here, and controls the center, basically the square on the d5 square, the d5, and as well as the e4 square. So yeah, knight sits very comfortable here. So I went for this. He takes with the rook, of course. If he takes with the pawn, his pawns will be doubled in the center, so he didn't double his pawns. Now I took the pawn with the bishop, with the idea that if he takes with the bishop, I can take with the rook, and then I take with the knight. So eventually I will go a pawn up. So it's the best move as such by computer. Now he doesn't take it because probably he also don't want to give away his bishop so early. Maybe he's trying to push his pawn as well, and it's an excellent move as such by the computer. F3 is excellent. So yeah, he plays a good move here. I took the bishop now because since this diagonal is already blocked by moving the f pawn, the white bishop becomes a liability to me eventually in the game. So I wanted to take the white light square bishop so that even he cannot attack my king side. Let's play the equalizer from here. And if you see, the game is in my favor already by just 1 point, but yeah, it's good enough if it's going in the end game. He takes with the rook, but he took the bishop. He could have actually first taken this, then the rook on the e file, give me a check so that I have to take it first. I've not taken with the a rook to e8, and then he could have taken away this bishop. But he took the bishop first, and the game moves a bit more in my favor now. And I try to take control of the e2 square. A good rank to be in. for doing checkmate eventually. And now the idea was that rook will come to the c8 square and then to the c2 square, which is a very good line here. Um could have gone either ways, but I tried to hold on for some more time. And then the opponent moves to the f1 square here, interestingly challenging this rook. He doesn't want my rooks to be aligned in this rank. So, okay, I'll align them in the e file rather. So you can stop my rook aligning at this rank, but I can obviously control the e file now. So now his plan is to go for the pawn exchange at least and do something from here. Uh, I didn't go for the pawn exchange with the idea that if he takes, I can take back with the pawn, and this pawn will, these two pawns will just stop each other, and there is no chance that he's crossing this pawn and making it a fast pawn and promote it to queen further. Plus, this pawn, the d5 pawn that I moved now it gives me an advantage that again I'm going for the center and making my pawns advanced, which will be handy in the end game. Now he moves a. This was a blunder which I didn't personally observe when he moved his knight here, with the idea that now I cannot get my other rook here and go for the exchange. I could have actually put my rook on the e1 square and then get the other rook to e2 square, so that I take his king out of his comfort and then probably win it from there. So I didn't see this. Yes, I remember correctly. So I moved the g6 pawn, which is again a blunder. Is as per the computer, I should have gone that way. But still, the game is in my favor. I was again trying to play with on my comfort levels. He exchanged the pawn, so I took it as well. And now he tries to threaten my rook because now my rook is not moving from there. So it appears as a threat to him. So he's trying to move it. So I go for the rook exchange here, which is a mistake as per the computer. But the idea was to take it to the end game here. As I'm a pawn up +1, it says, so why not go and play the end game better? So we took on the exchange. The rook exchange happened on the e3 square. And then he takes the pawn. And now the pawns are equal. I missed this part. Should have actually covered it. He took on the b5, and then I don't have much options but to get my knight here, and so at next move I can probably start going towards the king side, the opponent's court, because from here my knight was not doing anything, because this square was the d5 square was controlled by the pawn. I can't go to e4, I can't go to f4, g4, and h5 is anyways not useful for the knight much. So I went on the other side. I got back my rook and tried to protect my pawn. He moved on the c file. Now he's trying to come here down, but I didn't let him. So I just first move my f pawn, trying to go towards the king, making sure that I get to promote my queen first. Now he moves f4, challenging my rook, so I lose the control of my center pawn for the time being. So I moved it to e4. He moves pawn g3 because he's trying to control this pawn, otherwise I can take this pawn. Now this was an interesting square for me, getting my rook to the b file, to the b4 square. I'm controlling this. I will take one of these, the knight or the pawn, depends on what he says and how he reacts. And he went to the right square. He's saying that, okay, you eat my pawn and I'll eat your pawn. So the pawns remain the same in the game. So I first moved my pawn so that you now cannot take my pawn, but I can go for the pawn. So he poses another threat, which is an excellent move. Now he's saying, if you take my pawn on the b3 square, I take your pawn on the d4 square, and plus challenge this rook, the knight as well. Now I start moving my king towards the center. Always a good habit to move your king towards the center, because in end games, king should be always going towards the opponent. and trying to go with the pawns and then protect them and promote them to queen. And also, you have to be careful when opponent has a knight. He can always fork your uh, king and rook anytime. So you have to calculate your move properly. Now he moved his knight to the d5 square, challenging my rook, because if now I move my rook from here, he can then take this pawn, and that's what would have happened. Yes, right. I took the b3 pawn, and he takes my d4 pawn. Now the game hands, the game is completely neutral right now, a draw situation from here on, and if we both play perfect, to be sure. And then I try to take this h2 pawn, which if he moves his king on the wrong square here, but yeah, the opponent was good enough and he moved it to the g1 square. I tried to again go to the center. He tried to challenge my king again. Now, since the king is challenged and I have to stay and protect this knight, I have to move to the e7 square here. Now, again, an excellent move for white. He moved his rook at the d3 square, making sure that now he can probably make space for the knight and even block this file for the my king, because if he blocks this file, my king never goes to this part because he's controlling this file completely. So I try to challenge his knight first. So he gives me a check from the d5 square. I move my knight to e6. He goes back because he don't want to lose his knight if he moves queen rook eventually. So he first goes back to safety and also challenging this rook here on the c2 square. So I go for the check here, trying to move his king again. He moves to the f2 square. I get my knight in the picture, challenging the rook. Now the rook goes to the a3 square and trying to come down and cause some damage on this side on the pawn structure. He might take on the h7 pawn now, which becomes very vulnerable. So I first give him a check and place my knight in a square where it cannot be challenged because my pawn is protecting it. So he moves his king on the e2 square rather than moving it to f3. But both are good enough moves. So now I know, since he is trying to come on the a file on the a7, so I tried to protect it before he comes there. Now he gives me a check from the a6, and I move towards the rook so that just in case rook exchange happens, I'm there with the rook. My king is always there with the rook. Now he goes back to the a3 line. And now I give him a check, making sure that this is protected with the c7 rook. Now his king started moving here, and then I observe the thread that okay, if his king starts once coming here, it can enter space and take up the h pawn, h7 pawn, which is very critical. So I tried to first get my knight into a safety square, and his rook goes down now, trying to protect because he anyways have to move a piece right now, and he thought that moving the rook is better because he can then control this file, this rank. I can actually give him a check now with the rook. Probably I should have done that. Yes, I did the same. I gave him a check. He goes back again. Now I'm still again. It's a draw situation, as I said. If we both play perfect from here, the one actually who tries to break this position generally loses. So whenever you see a draw situation happening, go for the draw. Don't go for the victory match, because there are chances that if you break the draw situation, you will lose from there. So now I start moving the a pawn, the h pawn probably, yeah, h5, so that now if he comes to the a file, I can move my king up and to the e6 square and make sure that my pawns are still moving in the right direction. Then he challenges the rook, so I get the rook to attack the knight here. Knight goes to the b6 square. He can't go to the f6 square because it's controlled by the knight, to be noticed. And then I move towards the knight. Now I'm threatening our cause that okay, if you make any mistake here, I'll just take the knight. If you protect it, and then I can go for the exchange of the rooks, then he has to take the exchange. And now the game, if you see, is just slightly in the black's favor with this move. And he tries to protect the knight, which was probably the only move. No, he could have actually moved the f, the knight to even c square, or go towards. Uh, you know, I can evaluate this once. Probably this was, yeah, this is the best move as the computer for sure. But you can always see lines from here. What could have happened? I could have gone, no, going to the a square. A8 will be deadly. Going to the c square will also be deadly because eventually I go here, can be controlled. Yeah, so probably the rook b2 was the best move for him. So I went for the exchange here. He took, I took the rook first, and now it says white is winning here. Because actually I should have first given him a check and taken up with the knight itself, not with the king. Now since the king is here, I have to run to the pawn side and protect my pawns as well. And then white moves the best move here, which was getting the knight to d7. And then I tried to break the pawn structure there because there's no other way I can probably move forward in this game. I have to defend these pawns, that these pawns don't become a fast pawn. It's very hard to control with just one knight. And he moves his king first. I actually thought he would take it, and then I'll take with the knight, but that would have been okay for me, is what I calculated earlier when I was playing. But he moved the king first. It was also not a bad idea. It says now a draw situation after his move. Then I moved the pawn forward. So I didn't. I thought of first breaking this, but then once he breaks, then he can get space for his king and come to the side and break this pawn. I didn't want to give him that space to happen. So he moves from the other side now, and since he is moving to my side, I'll try to move this knight from here and then go back to safety. He moves his knight, gives me a check. I come to the center now. And he's also maneuvering his knight, which is okay. I'm also started maneuvering my knight because, as I said, if I try to break this by moving the h pawn, he will take it and then he will promote it first. So he wins from there. And the only way he can win it from here is by taking one of these knight pawns with the knight. So he tried to do that. I tried to save it. So now this move was good for him. He can go to this square and he can take this pawn as well. So I tried to save the pawn first so that he don't take it. Then he goes back to the g2 square. I give him a check first. He comes to the e2. I give him another check. I'm just trying to make sure that this king is moving away from that pawn structure, and so that eventually I can get my king on his side. But he was smart. He was not trying to break it. As I said, it was a draw situation from long back, but we both tried to play for some more time, just waiting for one another's mistake, whosoever tries to break it. And then I started moving my king towards the center. Again, the regular knight moves, trying to just make sure that things are still safe, and we are trying to not break anything here unless somebody does a mistake. Yeah, so these are regular knight moves, nothing much here to be explained. Now, whenever you get a chance to go back to the center, you just move your king to the center. Now he gave me some space here, so I went with the knight first, and then this was a good move from him. He tried to give me the knight exchange, and I took it. I thought that okay, then only king, and the three pawns are struck eventually remain. So whosoever tries to go for the attack will lose from here. So this was the best move for me, trying to go to the corner pawn and trying to gobble it, so that once these pawns are gone, I can easily promote and win. So I am towards his side. He has to go over from the long part and then to capture the pawn. So he cannot. So he goes back to defending this, that I cannot come from. He cannot get to the f3 square here. So I evaluated and thought I can actually break this pawn structure now, because if he takes, I can take this, and I can, if he moves it forward, I can come to the g5 square and then probably gobble this pawn as well, which is a good move for me. And here is what a blunder is, the life changing, I was saying, the game changing blunder, which he played by moving his king to f2 square. And I now got an opportunity to capture the pawn. So I captured, he captured with the pawn, and I moved one square here so that I am not giving him square much, but I have to move it's my turn. I have to move the king somewhere. So I moved it there. And now he has to move his king. Either way, it's bad for him because I'm coming, and I'll once come here, I'll just gobble these two pawns eventually. So I come to the e3 square. He moves king to g2, trying to save with the pawns. I waste another move by going to e2 square. He goes back to g1, and then I control to the and take control of the f3 square. Finally, he can defend it once more, which he does by moving it to h2. I have to move, so I move it to f2, just trying to make sure that once he moves this now, I capture the pawn, and this will be definitely winning for black. Once he moves, I take the second pawn, and then I go to e3. So the idea behind e3 was now I can move my pawn without any concerns here, because he will have to move his king. I'll give him a check. He gobbles one pawn, but you cannot control the second pawn for sure. And so I got the queen. And then I was losing on time. I had 14 seconds. He had 2 minutes 16 seconds, but 14 seconds is good enough to mate once you have got the queen. So I just trying to yeah. So this is very interesting. You try to push your opponent to a quadrant here. So chess is the chessboard has 4 quadrants. Wherever you can push your king to one of the quadrants, try to just push it to the quadrant so that there is no escape plan for the king there. So I'm just trying to push him into a quadrant. I give him a check from here. If I give him a check from here, he can again from the c5 square, he can actually come to the d7 and then probably run towards the h file. So I tried to control. So I again gave him one more check from here. All these are best moves, calculated ones, tried and tested to put him into a place from where he cannot come back. Now I controlled him by moving my queen to b4, making sure that the king has only 3 squares remaining now to move forward, and I slowly get my king towards the king, and then the final nail in the coffin, checkmate. Yeah, so it was an interesting game. Ended well for me. The whole thing was the game was draw, as I said, from long back. But the one who tries to break the situation loses here. So always stick with the draw whenever you get a chance. All right, so I'll just show the analysis of this. Computer says the accuracy of both of us was very nice. He had an accuracy of 96.2, while I had an accuracy of 98.4 here. Best moves also, if we see 69 for white, 56 for black. A big game, a long game because of the end game. If we see here, the game was in the black's favor here, and then it was draw situation, just slightly in white favor in some places, but yeah, then eventually black took it because white had took the initiative of winning from there. So yeah, interesting game. One lesson to be learned from here is do not break. Do not break draw situation, take the draw and settle with it. All right, so that's it for today, and we'll post something later on whenever I get time and something interesting to put. I actually am thinking of Karoka next time, but yeah, let's see how it goes. All right, thank you so much for watching this. Please do like, subscribe, and share, and keep supporting. Support is very important. All right, thank you. Take care. Bye bye.